The Tesla Cybertruck, this mythical beast of a truck that no one thought existed, is finally launching here in the next couple months. And even though we don't have pricing from Tesla yet, I think I figured out what the price is going to be for all the trims. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Thank you very much, Zach, for posting this picture. This is what this Tesla Cybertruck looks like. This was spotted about a couple days ago. It looks pretty done from an outside perspective, and now we're just waiting for deliveries. This thing was first unveiled in 2019, right around November, and it's been a minute since we've last seen the truck, and finally we're starting to see more and more models hit the road. Now, 4 years of inflation and COVID is going to change the price of what Tesla showed back in November of 2019. However, I think I have a way to figure out what that pricing is going to look like. The deliveries for the truck are slated to come out in the second half of 2023. In 2019, the pricing, the base was slated to be at $39,900, the mid-range at $49,900, and the top of the line models was at $69,900. I think we have enough data to predict the Cybertruck pricing, and this is because we have pricing for trucks like the F-150 Lightning, and very recently, as of a couple days ago, the Chevy Silverado EV. And the pricing for these two trucks, I think, is really going to dictate what the Cybertruck pricing is going to be and what kind of mileage that truck is going to get as well. Now, it's very important to note that these are going to be starting prices. It will not include any EV tax credit, and it will also not include any upcharges or markups that a dealer could put on top of the Ford F-150 Lightning or the Chevy Silverado rather. Tesla doesn't have a dealership network, so you don't have to worry about markups from them. Thank God. So here's the F-150 Lightning. This is the XLT model, which I'll use for a like-for-like comparison between the Silverado and the Cybertruck. The XLT model, the trim rather, starts at $79,975. This truck gets 300 miles of range. It's all-wheel drive, and it gets about 10,000 pounds of towing capacity. This is the Chevy Silverado EV 4WT. This starts at $79,800. It has 450 miles. It's all-wheel drive, and it also can pull 10,000 pounds when it's towing. Now, what's interesting here is that the Chevy Silverado has 150 miles more range than the Ford F-150 XLT trim. Now, Silverado EV 4WT, so the trim we just looked at, is labeled as a work truck, whereas the XLT trim for the Lightning is labeled more as a luxury truck. So it has more features inside, whereas the 4WT is going to be a lot more utilitarian. It's going to have less stuff inside, and it's really focused around that range. So even though it's the same price, the Silverado is going to get more range, but the Lightning is likely to get a lot more features than the Silverado. However, when it comes to a work truck, the 450 miles of range is going to be super useful. Now, the Silverado is going to weigh about 8,500 pounds versus the Ford Lightning's 6,500 pounds. So it's going to be 2,000 pounds heavier than the Lightning, which is a lot of weight. And this is because they're going to use the Hummer EV battery essentially in the Silverado, which is unfortunately not very efficient. But here's what the clear trend is becoming using two different trims from two different automakers for the electric pickup truck. These two are both below $80,000 starting price for the extended range. And you might ask yourself, this is interesting, right? Why are they pricing these at $79,800 or $900? And that's because the IRS, so the tax system in the United States, has an EV tax credit for any pickup trucks whose MSRP doesn't exceed $80,000. And this EV tax credit is $7,500 for any cars or trucks that are under these thresholds. Now, this bodes really well for the Cybertruck because it gives us an idea of what a long-range model is going to look like for the truck and where the pricing is going to be. But the big thing here is going to be what's going to be the range for that price and what kind of trims could Tesla offer based on that middle model, or let's call it the extended version model. Now, if you're enjoying this content so far, I would love it if you throw me a like. It helps the YouTube algorithm show this to more people. Thank you very much. I really appreciate you. Let's use two trims from today for Tesla and Ford that's really going to help us understand how Tesla is pricing its lineup against an EV competitor. So we'll use the Model Y and the Mach-E, and that price difference is going to help us understand where the Cybertruck could come in. And so this is the Ford Mustang Mach-E, in case you're not familiar. It's an SUV, good looking car. And I see them quite a bit around my area. And here's the Tesla Model Y, which is the best selling car around the world. If you didn't know, it sold about 250,000 units in the first quarter of 2023, and it's slated to become the best selling car in the world in 2023 full year. Now, the California Route 1 trim for the Mustang Mach-E starts at about $56,999. This car has about 312 miles of range, and it's all-wheel drive. And the like-for-like trim from Tesla is the Model Y Extended Range all-wheel drive. This car starts at around $50,490. It has 330 miles of range, and it also has all-wheel drive. So what's interesting here is that for the same exact type of car between Ford and Tesla, basically the same feature set, the same range, the Tesla Model Y has 5% more range, and it's 11% cheaper. So that seems to be the trend between a like-for-like model between a Tesla and a Ford. And theoretically, we could use this math and apply it to the trucks to see where the Cybertruck could land. Now, if we apply this to the Cybertruck versus the Lightning, then this is what the numbers are going to shake out if we use that kind of math for the pickup truck. So the XLT would go from $79,975 to $71,177, and it would have 350 miles of range if it was a Model Y in this case. So if this used the same pricing strategy and the range strategy that the Tesla, then this is what the pricing would look like for this pickup truck. Now, if we move it up to the $79,000, which is where Tesla is likely to be for the Cybertruck, so it's right under that IRS tax credit, then the Cybertruck would have about 354 miles of range at that $79,000 price tag if we just purely use that math and don't take into account any other variables. However, the big variable that's outstanding there that we don't really know how to handle yet is that Tesla said that the extended range trims will likely have about 500 miles of range for the top trims. And so if we look at this Cybertruck here, even though it's starting at about $80,000, 350 miles is quite a ways away from that 500-mile target. Now, it is important to note that Tesla does have vehicles in its lineup that achieve significantly higher than that 500-mile target. This is the Tesla Semi. At a full load of 82,000 pounds, this truck gets about 500 miles of range, and without any load, it gets about 800 miles of range without pulling anything. And if we compare it to the Chevy Silverado, we can see that there's already an automaker out there that's at around $80,000 that's able to offer about 450, maybe even 500 miles of range with the technology being used today. And it's also important not to forget that the EV4WT, so the Chevy Silverado model, is labeled as a work truck. So it's 450 miles without likely a lot of things in the interior that the XLT or the Cybertruck is likely to use. And that's a very important thing to keep in mind, because it could mean that the Cybertruck could offer similar range, but with more options than the Silverado. And so it's very likely that Tesla has the technology to do 500 miles in a truck, but the question becomes at what price? And so another way of looking at this is if we take the same math and apply it to the Lightning Pro, which is Ford's work truck, and then try to math it up, what kind of numbers will we get if we apply that sort of logic? So the Ford Lightning Pro starts at $59,000. It has 230 miles of range, and it is also all-wheel drive. Now, if we apply the same math we did with the Mustang Mach-E and we applied it to the XLT, this Tesla equivalent truck would be $53,000 and 241 miles of range. And if we move it up to the $79,000 mark to stay right below that IRS threshold limit for the EV tax credit, that Cybertruck would be around $80,000 and 361 miles of range. But even if we use the Pro comparison and try to apply the same pricing and mileage logic that Tesla has versus its competition, however, there's a huge difference between Tesla vehicles and its competition, especially when it comes to Ford and Chevy. And that huge difference is that the Ford Lightning and the Chevy Silverado do not make money at these prices. So those $80,000 trucks are not making the companies any money. And we know this because Ford has shown us how much money they make on their EV business. This is the Ford Model E business, which Ford calls their EV subdivision. And based on the latest earnings from the first quarter of 2023, Ford lost 102% margin on every EV that it sold. And it averaged about negative 40% margin for the previous quarters. This equates to about $700 million lost in their EV division every single quarter. So they are not making money. And GM with their Chevy Silverado truck is very likely to be in the same exact boat as Ford. In comparison, Tesla makes about 20% profit per car sold on average. So there's a huge gap between the pricing that Ford and GM can command for a specific range on a truck and what Tesla could command when it comes to their vehicles, because they are making money on their trucks and on their cars. And it's also important to keep in mind that that 20% margin that Tesla's making includes their entire range of models. So it includes the S and the X, which are more upscale, and it also includes the 3 and the Y. And the 3 is a platform that has been around for quite a while now that is not as profitable as the Y or the X and the XS models. So that 20% includes a blend of all these cars. And it also doesn't include a pickup truck, which typically is quite a bit more expensive and also more profitable. But even so, let's go ahead and assume that Tesla sold the Cybertruck at break even if it was making 20% margin. So let's not give them the benefit of the doubt when it comes to the pickup truck pricing. And let's say, hey, Tesla, if you were to sell them at 20% margin and you decided to sell it at break even, right? Like Ford and Chevy are doing, what does the pricing look like? So let's go ahead and do that math. So the Cybertruck would go down from $79,000 to $63,000 once we choose to bypass that 20% profit average that Tesla's making on its current models. And if we work up the pricing now to that $79,000 to stay right at that threshold so that Tesla can get the EV tax credit, the Cybertruck all of a sudden goes from a 360-mile truck to a 450-mile truck at $79,000 while not making any money if they were to sell it at the 20% margin and then decided to break even. I hope that makes sense, but all of this will make sense at the end, I promise. This is just a way for us to really understand what Tesla's pricing is going to be. Now, what's even more surprising is that there's even more room. So there's not just that 20% margin that Tesla makes on average. Remember, Tesla's not selling a pickup truck right now, and that 20% includes cars that are not as profitable as a pickup truck. And so I'm going to let Corey Steuben, the president for Monroe & Associates and the leader of Monroe Life, to explain why pickup trucks are able to make more money than the average car that Tesla sells. Let's go ahead and take a listen.
When you're designing a vehicle like a truck, profit margins on trucks historically have been huge because when you're using 33% more material, that's like the smallest amount. That's a very small driver in cost compared to the size of the vehicle. So people will pay $80,000 for like a F-150 Limited or a Silverado, whatever, but the amount of material is only like 25% more if you count steel and aluminum. So you only have a small parametric growth in material usage. So the suspension parts get slightly larger, the gigacastings get a third larger, the steel is larger.
And because of these advantages from selling a pickup truck at a higher price, I'm estimating the pickup truck gross margin for the Cybertruck to be in the 30 to 35% gross margin range, which is right around where Corey said in that same interview and other interviews we've done as well, of where the Cybertruck margin is likely to land. And so if we do that math, instead of the 20% gross margin at the average level for Tesla with its current lineup, if we move it to what they're likely going to make with the pickup truck at 35% margin, the break-even price actually goes down to $51,000. $51,000 if we just take this math into account at 361 miles of range. And if we move it all the way up to $79,000 at break-even, then that Cybertruck suddenly becomes an $80,000 truck with 555 miles of range if Tesla decides to sell this truck at the same exact strategy as Ford and Chevy with their Silverado and their Lightning. However, there's even more room. And this is where I think Tesla is going to have a huge pricing advantage when it comes to selling the pickup truck, and why they should be able to sell a truck at around $80,000 with a lot of range while being profitable while every other automaker won't be able to do that. And this is why they have more room. They have things like single piece castings that are not part of the process for the S and the X and the 3 in their current lineup with that 20% margin number. They're also completely eliminating the paint shop. So even though a pickup truck right now is making about 30 to 35% gross margin, they all have paint shops. Tesla is completely getting rid of the paint shop with the Cybertruck, and that's why it looks like a steel monster. It's because they don't put any paint on it. And they also have next generation techniques that no one else is using on their cars that Tesla is going to employ for their pickup truck, in this case, the Cybertruck. Some of those next generation technologies are the low voltage architecture, which moves the architecture to 48 volts, which is going to dramatically lower the amount of materials used in the wiring and the electronics, which is going to also lower weight and make the truck a little bit cheaper to build. In addition to next generation manufacturing efficiencies, which the Cybertruck is going to be able to benefit from. This is for their full next generation vehicle with their compact car, but it's very likely that they're going to employ a lot of these techniques for the Cybertruck to be able to lower the price even further from where we are right now. And so fewer parts, lighter weight, and very efficient because of Tesla's advanced battery and powertrain technology should allow the Tesla Cybertruck to have very competitive pricing with very competitive range right at that threshold for the EV tax credit from the IRS. This is going to help Tesla achieve high profitability while the other trucks break even. And again, I reinstate this point because it's very important. It's going to allow Tesla to be extremely competitive in the marketplace, very similarly to how the Model Y and the Model 3 and the rest of their lineup are versus its competition. And of course, we can't forget about any other software add-ons that Tesla could offer on the Cybertruck that will again continue to help Tesla to get even more profitable with their trucks. And so here's my prediction of where Tesla's Cybertruck pricing is going to be at. And before I show you my prediction, if you'd like to support the channel, I have a link to Athletic Greens in the description below. You can use my link and my coupon to get free travel packs and free vitamin D with your purchase. Supplement I use every single day, and I love it. Thank you so much for your support. I really appreciate you. Okay, so here's my prediction. Based on all the math that we went through, all the logic that I hope made sense, this is where I think the pricing is going to end up. So I'm predicting Tesla that will offer a dual motor standard version for the Tesla Cybertruck, which is going to start right around the $69,000 mark. I predict it will have about 350 miles of range without a full load and about 220 miles of range on a full load. And this, of course, will benefit from the IRS EV tax credit, $69,000. 350 miles of range-ish. Then the next trim up, I'm expecting to be a dual motor long range, which will start somewhere around that $79,990 figure. It will have about 500 miles of range, and it will pull about 340 miles at full load, which by the way should be around 14,000 pounds in case you're not familiar with that statistic. And the way I'm thinking about these numbers is that Tesla is going to be able to offer the best of both worlds. It's going to be able to offer luxurious interior like an XLT, and it's also going to offer the range of a Silverado, but with the same price, which kind of lines up with how Tesla is positioned against its competitors in the market today. And this should very well apply to this pickup truck market as well, especially since we've gone through our math to figure out where the numbers could end up as it pertains to Tesla's technology and its competition. And then lastly, I'm also expecting Tesla to unveil a tri-motor performance trim at $99,990. This will not be eligible for the EV tax credit, but this one's really for people that just want the craziest truck they can buy. 600 miles of range. I'm expecting this truck to have, having Tesla's best technology out there, and which should equate to about 375 miles at full load. If we use the same math that the Semi has when it comes to the range in a full load and an empty scenario. So 600 miles of range, 375 miles at full load. Now, here's the crazy part. Here's what's really weird about this specific truck and what it's going to look like in the current landscape is that this middle trim, the dual motor long range with the EV tax credit, will go down to $72,490 with a truck that has 500 miles of range. And in places like Colorado, which is introducing a $5,000 state tax credit for EVs, This will go down to $67,490 at about 500 miles of range, again, including both the federal and the Colorado EV tax credit. Now, if we compare this to its primary competitor, which I believe to be the Ford Raptor starts at about $76,775. And with the full incentives, if you're in Colorado, you could get a Cybertruck with better range technically than that gas equivalent and about the same performance. And, the looks are completely different. That's subjective, but you could get a Cybertruck nearly $10,000 cheaper than its closest competitor after federal and Colorado EV tax incentives. And the federal EV tax credit, this is a really big point for 2024. This $7,500 credit can be taken at the point of sale. So once you pick up the car starting in 2024, instead of working through eligibility when you're applying for your tax return. And so starting in 2024, you could just include that lower price of your monthly payment, and that's it. And you don't have to worry about filing it for your taxes and getting it back at the end of the year, which is a huge deal for lowering monthly payments, especially on an expensive vehicle like a pickup truck. In addition to that, you also have giant savings on fuel and maintenance costs with an EV pickup truck because you're not paying for fuel on a truck that's getting 50 miles per gallon and potentially higher costs with gasoline versus diesel. And then with an EV, you're also not paying for an oil change, you're not paying for a transmission, you're not paying for a catalytic converter, you're not paying for the oil filter, and whatever else you have to do to the radiator. The brakes you won't have to pay for much at all because EVs have regenerative braking. They barely use the brake. So you get giant savings from owning a pickup truck that's electric versus a gas or diesel truck. In addition to that, if you're somebody who wants to purchase a truck for a business, there's additional savings for businesses using existing tax savings and deductions that the United States offers for anybody who buys trucks for their fleet or for business purchases or for business purposes, rather. You can use the existing incentives to lower your price even further on a car like the pickup truck, like the Cybertruck in this case. So I would love to hear what you think in the comment section below. Let me know what you think about all these numbers. Let me know if it was easy to understand. And I would love to hear your prediction in the comment section below as well. Do you think I'm going up the wrong tree, or do you think this is what's going to end up being the pricing for the Tesla Cybertruck? This is my best guess, and hopefully it comes true. And if it doesn't, great. That's also great. I'm just excited for this truck to finally be coming out. Thank you so much for watching this video. I hope this video was informative and helpful, and we'll see you on the next one. Take it easy, everybody. Bye-bye.